Kamala Harris, Tiffany Henyard, Brandon Johnson. Three political figures dealing with the same issue, overspending. During a time when inflation is ridiculous, people are going to watch the pockets of our government officials. None of these people seem to understand that the way that they spend their money is not what Americans want. And if we continue to elect people like this, all of us are gonna have to foot the bill. I live alone, I take care of myself. I don't have the luxury of not paying my bills and falling in ridiculous debt. Welcome to the Mr. Wilson's Got a Headache podcast. I'm your host, Dennis the Menace. Listen, since you're already here, like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for future content. Check this out.
Under a Johnson administration, I'm not raising property taxes.
Well, so I'm not going to raise property taxes. That's been the lazy form of governance for a very long time in the city of Chicago and quite frankly, around the country. We have to make sure that we're not raising revenue off the backs of working people. And that's why I'm the only candidate who's committed to not raising property taxes.
Communities have been hit hard because the property taxes continue to go up. And that's why I'm committed to making sure that we're not raising property taxes to keep families in the city of Chicago.
So in order to actually fix our economy, we have to eliminate the structural deficit. We get to make up to $1 billion of new investments so that we can save lives, the programs that are needed to do that. And we do it without raising property taxes.
Losing those.
2 years later.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, what would you say to those who voted for you and now you are going to be raising those property taxes when I know initially you said that you would not during your campaign?
Well, look, as I've always said, I hold true to my values, and negotiating the details of my values is something that I've always been open to. But first and foremost, I want people to be very clear that what this budget does, what I've done since I've been in office, it invests in young people. It invests in mental health and behavioral health. It invests in community safety. It invests in building more affordable homes. These investments are clear. We're not going backwards to a time in which neighborhoods that have been, disinvested in and ignored over decades, we're not going back to that time. And look, as painful as this process has been, I know that the people of Chicago don't want us to lose the vital services that we rely upon. And with the options that were in front of me, and this is, the reality of the options that are in front of me. We can cut and lay off our neighbors. We can find, revenue streams. But we have to make sure that we're paying our obligations as well.
Brandon Johnson is the mayor of Chicago, Illinois. His first term started when Lori Lightfoot's term ended. Brandon Johnson is a school teacher who was elected, according to him, to look out for Chicago's youth. Under Brandon Johnson's leadership, the city of Chicago, Illinois, one of the largest cities in the United States, has a $1 billion budget deficit. And Brandon Johnson still has a number of years on his term. One of the things that I've noticed about Brandon Johnson is that whenever someone talks about the spending, he moves the conversation back to talking about the children of Chicago. He's using the children to play on people's emotions because most of us don't want to go public and say, even if the children have to hurt, we are in a financial situation where we have to do what we have to do. As a result of Brandon Johnson's reckless spending, Chicago may have to lay off 17% of its workers. 17%. Let's just say, for an example, that Chicago had 20,000 workers. 17% of those workers will be 3,400 people, all because of horrible spending. Keep in mind, this is during a time where the U.S. economy is not doing that great. Not only that, Brandon Johnson stands by his decision for Chicago to be a sanctuary city. So they have hundreds of thousands of migrants there who get free services, free hotel rooms, free places to stay, cards with money on them so they can go grocery shopping, while the citizens of Chicago have to go to work every day. They're underpaid, they're dealing with inflation, and they have to pay taxes on every dollar that they earn. Right down the road from Brandon Johnson,
The village of Dalton is more than $3.5 million in the hole. Mayor Tiffany Henyard is accused of misusing money, and today she's nowhere to be found.
Tara Molina spent the day in Dalton following the investigation into Henyard's spending. Tara?
Jim and Marie, former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot is the special investigator in this case. And like we first told you last night, not only did she find the village of Dalton is in significant debt, but she also found the village's credit card spending is out of control. Mayor Tiffany Henyard didn't respond to any of my requests today, and I'm told she's not in the building. No response to repeated interview requests. I tried to track down Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard in person today. Village employees told me she wasn't in the office and didn't say when she would be, a day after this. A packed community meeting Thursday night, outburst after outburst. Following special investigator Lori Lightfoot's limited examination of Dalton's finances. Her report revealing as of May 31st, the village's general fund had a negative balance of $3.65 million. Lightfoot originally hired by trustees concerned about spending, like self-promoting taxpayer-funded billboards, ads, plus spending on lavish dinners and trips.
When she took office, the village had a $6 million surplus. So total, Tiffany Henyard has overspent by somewhere around $9 million. When she walks in, she looks like she's a billionaire or something. Like she really got the bag. And not only that, Tiffany Henyard got put out of her house recently. But before then, Tiffany Henyard opened a business that shut down and wouldn't pay his workers. So I'm not completely blaming Tiffany Henyard. I'm also looking at Dalton, Illinois, which is a predominantly black village that elected someone who didn't have any proof that she could be responsible with money. They literally gave somebody who was horrible with money a credit card so she could go spend it however she saw fit. I did a video on Tiffany Henyard as well. Go check that one out on my channel. It's much more detailed than what I'm doing right now. Just a few months ago, the city of Dalton was at risk of having to shut its doors to most of its employees because they wouldn't be able to make payroll unless they were able to get a loan or raise some money by selling some of the city's real estate. This situation reminds me when I was younger and I was spending too much money and I had some nice things and it all fell apart because I didn't have any safety net, any money in the bank. And one thing I know about life is that it always comes around. It always happens. And so eventually I had to take my game system to the pawn shop. It was a hard thing to do. And most of the time you wouldn't do it until you were desperate. This problem is showing up mainly with Democratic politicians across the country. And it's not just mayors of cities. It's not just senators and the way that they vote in the U.S. Senate, the House of Representatives. It's also at the top, at the executive branch. In walks Kamala Harris. Check this out.
Kamala Harris's campaign could be as much as $20 million in the hole. And that's after spending nearly $1 billion during its 107 brief days between launching and the election. Now, there have been many celebrity appearances and performances, but other vendors have yet to be paid, according to multiple reports. Just to recap, the Harris team shelled out $20 million for concerts, $4 million for influencers, and even spent six figures to build a replica of the Call Her Daddy podcast for Harris to sit with an interview with host Alex Cooper. DNC Finance Committee member Lindy Lee isn't happy about it all, and she is speaking out. Let's watch.
Our top donors have not gotten any sort of briefing or an apology or any sort of explanation as to where our money went.
No apology?
I mean, no one has gotten anything. We haven't gotten any sort of follow-up other than her concession speech.
Have you heard of issues, vendors being paid, not paid, anything like that?
Yeah, I've gotten calls from former staffers who have not gotten paid, and they asked me for help, including people here in Pennsylvania. And this is for work done in August. I'm not sure what happened.
Yeah,
so we're $20 million in debt. Someone has to pay that off. some Twitter people are saying that money is going to go towards a recount, but I think that's just Pollyanna's thinking. I don't think that there's any serious effort to have a recount.
Oh boy. It wasn't that long ago that everybody was talking about how Kamala Harris raised $80 million after she announced that she was going to be running for president. Then everybody wanted to talk about how much money she raised from her rich Democratic donors. She raised over $1 billion, as well as receiving over $100 million from the Joe Biden campaign. $1 billion. And now, Kamala Harris's campaign is $20 million in debt. This situation lines up perfectly with how much money the Biden administration is sending over to other countries. When Kamala Harris accepted the nomination from the Democratic Party, in effect, she became the president of the Democratic Party. Nobody in the Democratic Party could supersede her judgment on what she wanted to do. They could give her suggestions, they could try to talk her out of it. But when you are the leader, the person at the top of the food chain, you don't have to listen to what they say. So ultimately, the responsibility is yours. There's been a lot of people talking about sexism and all these different isms, but some of us paid attention and we could see the signs. And we knew that voting for the first woman president was not more important than the state of our country right now. I think the financial reason is the main reason for most people. We saw her voting record, the tie-breaking vote for sending billions of dollars to Ukraine with no regulations or no ability to see where Ukraine is spending this money, sending money to countries all over the world, sending money to Ecuador, and this is real, sending money to Ecuador to host drag shows. In the next video I'll post, we're going to be talking about Donald Trump's new department, the Department of Government Efficiency, and his choice to have Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy find all the waste in the government so we can get our own country on the right track before we help other people. It's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I know I'm usually there for you, but right now I'm going through a rough time and I need to get some things in line. And if you're the type of person who can't say no to people, I'm pretty sure you got a lot of financial problems going on in your life. But if you continue to say yes, and you end up flat on your face out on the street, how many of those people do you think are going to break their necks to come pick you up? That's all I got on it right now. I want to know what you think about it. Am I tripping? Did I get it wrong? I'm not going to fuss with you in the comments. I just want to know what your perspective is. If you agree, let me know. If you disagree, let me know. But don't just let me know. Do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel for future content. And as always, I'll see you on the next video.